Okay, so today is the day that I'm going to be sharing a bit of my journey over the last few years. I've been through quite a big transition, and I've shared little bits and pieces with it online, but I haven't really shared the full scope of the transition that I've been through and some of the experiences that I've had. And I've always had fear around speaking. I've always had fear around sharing my truth. And I really want to take this moment to share with everyone the experiences that I've been through, because I know that there are so many other people that are going through similar situations. And when we really come forward and we speak about it from an open heart, it helps each other. It helps the collective as we move through our own healing journey, and share those experiences. We really do heal each other while, everyone else is on their healing journey. So I really do feel it's important to share our experiences and share from our hearts. And so I am pre-recording this video. I'm going to be streaming it live, but I haven't quite learned the art of staying in my heart space while there's all this activity going on the screen. So so I'm recording this video ahead of time. I just wanted to let you guys know that. So starting out, okay, so it was probably about 4 years ago that things started really changing in my life. Prior to that, I was kind of the stereotypical archetype, stressed out mom, stressed out working mom. But we had a couple of years that we refer to as the golden years, because the kids were still a little young. They were elementary school and junior high age, and although they are really busy with all their activities, and we're really busy working, building, my husband and I have our business, so we were really busy building that business. Everything was just kind of easy. We had really great friends that we spent a lot of time with, and so there was just a span where everything was really easy. And during that time, I kept having these reoccurring dreams of, it was either I would find a secret room in my house that was always there, but I was just discovering it, and it was so beautiful. Or there was a secret house somewhere, and when I would discover it, it would be like, oh my gosh, this is just incredible. And there's even like secret cities where we would have a house, and every time that I would look up the meaning of these dreams, it would say that, you're really soul searching and you're really on this journey of discovery. And I was kind of naive and saying, like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any self-discovery. I don't know why I'm having these dreams, and I'm too busy for anything like that. And so now when I look back at it in hindsight, I realize that was my soul calling me. My soul was calling me home. My soul was calling me to search for those secret rooms within my heart and search for those treasures that are, that are there, but, sometimes we just aren't ready to see them. And so because I did not answer this call, which I truly believe that we all get the opportunity to make these transitions into becoming more of our truer selves, in a peaceful way first, but when we don't answer that call, then the universe starts to really tear things down for us. So we get into that place of complete surrender, because there's really not a whole lot left to lose. And so because I did not answer the call, everything in my life just started going crazy. So things were crazy at home, things were crazy at the office. It was just day in, day out. Like, I just felt like I was getting it from every single direction. It was like just stress, huge waves of stress. and it was really taking a toll on my health. It was taking a toll on my body, and I was feeling incredibly exhausted. And so after about a year of nonstop stress, I got the news that my father's cancer came back, and he had previously had cancer. It was treated, and it came through that his PSA levels were up. And when I got that news, it was just like an instant terror, like instant grief, and I really had a hard time navigating through that. And I would wake up early every morning to go for a walk, and it was, I called the place where I walk like the Trail of Tears, because every single morning for about a year I would get up and walk, and even though it was 6 o'clock in the morning and the sun wasn't out yet, I'd have to wear my sunglasses to hide my tears. And what I didn't realize at the time was how I refer to grief that it's sticky and it's tricky. So it's sticky because if there's any undealt with grief or any undealt with emotions, oftentimes when grief comes up, it brings all of those undealt with fears, emotions with it. And it's tricky because you feel like you're grieving over one thing, but you're really grieving over a million things. And one of the things that I discovered on this journey is that my soul wound is repression. In the Gene Keys, which is written by Richard Rudd, everybody has a profile, and as you go through that profile, it unveils what your soul wound was or is to heal. And so what mine is, or what I have been in the process of healing, is repression. So when I read that, I was like, wow, that couldn't really describe me any more perfect. Like I've honestly, at that point in time, I think I was probably around the age of 38, I had spent 38 years of my life repressing every single thing that I was feeling, and not thinking that it was okay to feel them. And so as I was going through this process of not being able to hold those feelings down anymore, it was incredibly overwhelming and very, very exhausting as well. And of course, when you're overwhelmed and you're exhausted, that's going to spill out into all the areas of your life. And so you'll hear me say what I didn't know then, but I know now a lot during this conversation, because it really has been a journey of discovery. But what I didn't realize at the time is that this whole process of going through grief and being able to allow those feelings to come up and be seen and be processed is also, it's a process of purification of the heart. So it's also spoken about as unpacking. So you're literally unpacking your heart. We store so much in our heart space that we can't handle, we can't process. And when we take the time to really sit with all of it and just kind of sift through all of it, and it's pretty common to absorb other people's feelings, other people's emotions. And so when you really are able to sift through that and see, okay, this isn't mine, I'm gonna let go of that. And oh, this is mine, so I'm going to take responsibility for that and start making other choices so that doesn't happen again. And it's like this whole process of, okay, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to take responsibility for that. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to take responsibility for that. And so it's not an easy process. It's really tiring. It's really confusing. It takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of time being on your own and really thinking through these things. And I live in Los Angeles. This is really a society here that we don't really have time to think. And so you have to really start making changes in your life to make space for that. And so it was really scary for me to start making changes so that I can create space around that. And so again, everything was really, really stressful, and that was spilling out into other areas of my life. And then a big awakening occurred, and the way that I see awakening is, and this is how it's been for me, is that I've had a lot of like just little awakenings in my life. A lot of like, okay, hold up, wait a minute, you know, like, don't make that decision, we need to switch directions type of thing. And that's happened kind of periodically in my life. And one of those experiences happened, and it was so simple, and it was, but so powerful. And what happened was, my husband and I went out for a drink one night, and it wasn't common for us to meet up after work and just kind of like unwind or whatever. And he just made kind of like a casual, insensitive comment in regards to work. And because I was dealing with so much, and because I was so emotional, my normal response would be to just completely break down crying and want to figure out a way to go home. And but I didn't have that response this time. This time it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, well, now it's time to start figuring things out. And it was just like this like poof moment where all of a sudden in that split second, I realized that I wasn't living my true calling, and that I needed to figure it out. And it was a really powerful moment for me, because I think that leading up to that point, I had put everybody's needs in front of mine. And I think this is pretty common with moms, because we love our families so much, you know, and we want to do everything that we possibly can to help them, to support them, to love them. And we often put ourselves last. And so for me to like have this moment where I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to like figure my shit out, basically. And so I started on that journey. And for me, initially, it just felt like it was kind of like a transition and a career change. You know, I had been working in IT for quite some time, and my degree is in psychology, and I've always been really interested in the healing arts. And so I really was wanting to explore if I wanted to move into a different career, into more along the lines of the healing arts. And I knew that I was still very much grieving, and I was going through this process of really trying to understand that. And I knew that I had a lot of my own healing to do. And so it was kind of like a perfect situation for me to go through the process of healing myself while I explore a bunch of different healing modalities and see which one I feel works really well for me, or which ones that I resonate with, that I find really powerful and effective. So I went through that process, and I tried every healing modality under the sun, from traditional healing modalities like, you know, chiropractor, acupuncture. I was seeing a really amazing naturopathic physician, and I was trying less traditional healing modalities, like a whole variety of different energy type healings, like reiki, and you know, there's like healing hands. There's several different types. I even tried hypnotherapy, and then even some less traditional in the sense of, you know, in this lifestyle that I'm living here in the city, more like ancient type healing modalities, such as using toad medicine, which I will probably be doing a video just on that at a future point. And so I was kind of a little bit overzealous in the sense of that, like, I was moving through things really, really fast. and clearing things really, really fast. And through that process, I was really having to unlearn, I think, everything that I had learned over the last, almost 40 years. And I think there's more learning in the unlearning than there is in the actual learning. And so I was really using my heart as a teacher. I didn't really have a teacher or a guide. I didn't have anybody to say, like, oh, I've been through this. This is how you get through it. And so I was really navigating through this on my own and allowing my heart to be my teacher, filtering everything through my heart. If I would read something like, does this feel good in my heart? Yes or no? And yes, okay, I'm going to keep that. No, okay, I'm going to let it go. It was just a constant back and forth communication with my own heart. And so as I was going through this process, I very much had my scientific hat on. So I was studying a lot of neuroscience, and I wasn't on a spiritual path at all. And that wasn't my intention. I wasn't seeking anything along the spiritual path. I didn't really resonate with New Age teachings, or, what is often called as woo or woo-woo teachings. And, but I was starting to grasp some concepts, like, for example, I had watched several documentaries on reincarnation, or actually on near-death experiences, and my scientific mind processed, okay, well, if there's over 60,000 documented near-death experiences, and everybody kind of goes to that space and sees several lives and comes back reporting that, they were able to review several lives, then there's probably such thing as a reincarnation. So that was check. Okay, my scientific brain was okay, I can accept that. And my husband's aunt had given me a book called The Seat of the Soul several years prior, probably 8 or 10 years prior to this. And I had just kind of taken that out and started reading it, and they talked about the higher self, and because there have been points in my life where I have heard that inner voice, my scientific brain was able to accept that we have a higher self, and talked a little bit about soul contracts. And again, I had a circumstance so that when I met my husband, I knew right away that we were meant to be together. So having been through that experience, I was okay, I can accept that there's such thing as soul contracts. But that was pretty much the extent of my spiritual experience at this point. I had never done really any moon circles or any women's circles or anything like that. But I was starting to feel a little bit of connection to the cycles of the universe. And so during the summer of 2017, I went outside. It was a full moon in the evening time. And I just did a guided meditation. I wasn't super into meditation at that point, but I did have a few guided meditations that I like to listen to. And so I had a couple of healing sessions that were pretty powerful earlier that week. And so I was just kind of really feeling kind of connected and grounded. And when I went to bed that night, I kept waking up every hour with these huge energy fluxes. It almost felt like contractions, but energetic contractions, where it was like I'd have to breathe and just really just focus on my breath and focus on feeling grounded. And so all night long I was having these energetic waves, and I didn't really understand why I was feeling that way or where I was coming from. And this was on a Sunday night. So Monday morning, it was the total typical busy Monday. I had to squeeze an 8-hour workday into 2 hours because I had a bunch of errands to run with the kids that afternoon. And so I ran to the office, and still I was feeling just these really weird energetic surges, and I had to take one of the kiddos to the doctors, and that was a whole other experience. And this just goes to show that the universe really does have a sense of humor, right? So I didn't realize it, but I was in the process of going through this big experience that hadn't really hit its peak yet. And I'm still just very much trying to function in mom mode and work mode. And like, I take one of the kiddos to the doctors, and it's a new doctor that I've never seen before. My doctor was on vacation, and she starts having like the STD chat. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I don't even know what's happening to me right now. I'm not even like able to make a decision if this is like a good chat to be having right now. Like, I'm just trying to really like keep my shit together, you know, and just trying to like breathe through this weird energy that I was not really familiar with. I didn't understand what was going on. And then so, you know, I'm still with more errands. I had to go to school to enroll in school and pick out schedules and pick up lunch. And so I finally get home, and I was like, God, I just need to lay down. I don't know what's happening to me. It just kept getting hit over and over and over and over with these like it literally felt like I was about to have a baby. Like, it felt like those kind of contractions, like something is coming. And so I laid down in my bed, and I was like taking deep breaths. And in that moment, it was like I felt like my lungs were the size of the entire room. And I felt like every single breath that I took in, it was like I was breathing in the whole universe. It was just this really intense experience that like I didn't even understand. I've never heard of anything like this. And when I was telling my sister-in-law this story, when I got to this part, she's like, okay, Jamie, but you weren't on drugs or anything, right? Like, there's no drugs involved with this, right? I'm so glad that she said that, because honestly, there's no drugs involved. This is like this intense experience that I didn't understand. I don't know what was happening, but that's just what I was feeling. That's what I was moving through. So I'm sitting there in this like moment where my lungs are as big as the universe, and I'm like breathing in the whole cosmos, and my daughter comes in and is like, Mom, can you take me to my friend's house? And I'm like, okay, just trying to be normal mom, you know, like this is just normal. I don't know what's happening, but I can like figure it out. I can, whatever, I've got responsibilities. And so we get in the car, and she's like, you know, can we stop by Taco Bell? And so I'm like, okay. So we're like in the drive-thru at Taco Bell, and I'm just wondering in my head, like, because she's very sensitive, she's very intuitive, and I'm like, I wonder if she senses anything. I wonder if she feels what I'm feeling. I wonder if she thinks that I'm going through something crazy right now. And I'm like trying to like make small talk to just be normal, because I'm not feeling normal. I'm not accepting myself as normal, but I'm just trying to like wing it. And so I'm just making small talk, and we get through the drive-thru, and I take her to her friend's house. And so like I'm in the car by myself. And again, these surges, boom, one after the other, boom, boom, boom. And so I'm driving home, and that's where things start to get really interesting. So I didn't even know what multidimensionality was at that time. I didn't know what it was to be in a multidimensional space. But in that moment, as I was driving, there was like a tiny little aspect of me that was driving and was paying attention to the road and getting myself home safe. And then there was a large aspect of myself that just went into this experience. And how it started was, as I was driving, I just felt like whatever it is that's coming, I just need to surrender. I just need, whatever this is, I can't fight this any longer. I just need to surrender. And in that moment, it was like super hard to describe. But in that moment, it was like I could feel the energy of my higher self completely present. And I went through, in a matter of seconds, I went through 2 life reviews of this life. And the first time, it was like this energy of my higher self being gentle dropped in. And it was like in every single moment in this life that my higher self has been gentle, it was like highlighted in a matter of seconds. And then I moved into the energy of my higher self being patient. And there was just this, it was a patience that's really hard to describe because, you know, we're here in this realm of time and space. And so patience really is revolved around, you know, not wanting to rush time. But the patience that I felt in that moment was an infinite patience, like a beyond space and time patience. And again, life review, like I could just like tune into every single moment in my life where my higher self has been patient. And I started to get really emotional. And then the energy of love came down. And, you know, we see love in this lifetime as we express love to each other and we give love to each other. You know, there's conditional love, there's unconditional love. And it just felt to me like this love that had dropped in was completely beyond anything that I had experienced, and anything that we can really fathom being here. You know, it was just immense, it was vast, it was beyond. There are no words. And then I got really emotional. I was starting to cry, and then what dropped in was the energy of purity. And Richard Rudd talks about the energy of purity in his book, The Gene Keys, and which is the same one that I mentioned earlier, that showed me my sacred wound. And he talks about the energy of purity being a genetic codon, which is like, it's basically at the end of a genetic sequence, that it's a stop codon, where it stops one thing and another genetic code starts. That's a little scientific, but when I read that, I was really so appreciative of hearing that information, because when that energy of purity dropped in, it was like the North and the South Pole for me just went zoop, and everything shifted. And it was like there was an aspect of myself that just completely, I want to say dissolved, but it wasn't like a dissolve. It was just like a complete surrender and a movement of that energy. And then there was an aspect of myself that just completely dropped in. And so in that moment where the poles switched, the dialogue totally shifted of what I was experiencing. And it went from my higher self was gentle, my higher self was patient, my higher self was love, my higher self was pure, to embodying I am gentle. I am patient. I am love, and I am pure. And once that shift happened, I completely lost my shit, to be honest. Something happened. There was a very physical experience that happened after that. I was crying, just like, you know, bawling my eyes out. And what I forgot to mention is that my daughter, I drive myself home. I drove myself home safely. And when I walked in, my daughter was there with one of her friends. She was having a summer party the night before. So I kind of skipped this part. So I'll just go back because it is a little bit funny. But that night when I was having those energetic surges, I kept feeling like the moon was telling me to go out and sit with the moon, go out and sit with the moon. And there was an inner dialogue going in my head, like, I am not gonna go out and sit in the moon. Like, it's in the middle of the night, and like I could hear my daughter like 2 a.m. in the kitchen getting snacks with her friend, and I'm like, they're gonna think I'm a complete freak if I go out and sit with the moon. My husband's gonna think I'm a complete freak if I go out and sit with the moon. Like, this isn't going down. Like, I was literally having this inner dialogue about, you know, basically resisting the pull that I was getting. And so when I get home, I arrive home back at my younger daughter with her friend that had spent the night. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And so I literally like kind of went, hey guys, you know, walk past them, walk into the office, shut the door, walk into my bedroom, shut the door, walk into my bathroom, shut the door. And there was just so much going on physically. Like, my whole body was buzzing, vibrating. Tears were pouring down, and it was, you know, just like ugly crying. Like, I don't know where all the mucus came from, but there was just like waterfalls of mucus coming out my nose, and it was not pretty at all. It wasn't a pretty, you know, like, no, not attractive experience, but it was very blissful, you know. Like, I didn't feel like I even had a body. My body was vibrating so much that it was almost like I was just pure love, pure joy. And so I just went into the shower because it was like I just craved water energy. And so I just sat in the shower, and I probably shouted like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Maybe, or maybe I just thought that in my head, I don't know. But it was so just kind of disorienting, you know. It was just beyond, it was a very human experience, but also very multi-dimensional experience. And so I really just sat in the shower and was like, what is happening to me? What is going on? Like, I felt like I really connected to my soul. I felt like I kind of gave birth to my own soul. It was like this, once I surrendered to that, something was born. Something, I don't know if it was a rebirth. I still don't really have a linguistic description of what it is that happened. As much research as I've done, and like ask people if they've had a similar experience, like I haven't come across anybody that's had the same experience. Of course, there's similar ones, but nothing, you know, we're all very individual. So I think as we move through things like this, it's very individual to, you know, our own energies. And so once things kind of like settled down, the intensity settled down, the vibration kind of came down a little bit, I tried to text my husband afterwards because I really just wanted to reach out to him and let him know that something really big just happened. And I couldn't even I couldn't type on my phone. I couldn't use my fingers. It was like I just didn't really feel like I was in a physical body. Everything was just so tingly, and so I just laid down. And when he came home, I kind of explained to him what had happened, and luckily he was supportive, because I was really worried that he would think that I was completely lost it. And so you would think that after having this experience like that, where I moved through these really beautiful energies, and I was able to embody a little bit of these energies and really connect with a deeper part of who I am, that everything would be so blissful afterwards, right? And, you know, I had this mystical experience, and it's like, oh, the whole world has changed. Well, the whole world did change from that point forward. My perspective of everything changed from that point forward, but it wasn't an easy transition. It wasn't easy transition on my physical body. It wasn't easy transition emotionally. I had a lot of fear, and I even had a lot of anger, because I had experienced some traumas in my body prior to this. A couple days later, when I realized that my body had changed so much, like I couldn't handle my phone. I couldn't handle being on my phone. I couldn't handle being on my laptop, like any electronics. I was just way too sensitive to use. I couldn't eat. The only thing that didn't make me sick was pressed green juice and macadamia nuts. And I was very fortunate, because they're not just any macadamia nuts. They're macadamia nuts from my husband's father's farm. And, you know, it really proved to me how much food can be medicine for us, and how important it is to, be really connected to the source of that food. And when I was able to eat these macadamia nuts that were harvested on his father's farm, I was like, it made me feel so connected to the land, and it made me feel so grounded, and like no pill could have done that. And so I just feel very, very gratitude that I was able to have that medicine to help my body through that transition. And so because my body had changed, like my scientific mind was like, I was just looking for a way of like learning how to deal with my stress. I was just looking for a way to learn how to, be healthier and have stress not affect my physical well-being. And I wasn't looking to change my body so much, and I definitely wasn't seeking this spiritual experience so much. And so it was kind of hard for me to swallow everything that had happened, and to kind of understand and make peace with it. And I didn't have many people to turn to. I had asked one of the healers that I had worked with, and she said, "Oh, your light body is upgrading." And I was like, well, what the hell is a light body? and so a lot of people watching this will find that funny, right? Because there's a lot of people that understand what our light bodies are. And I had no clue, to have this big experience and to not really understand what the light body was. And it was just like shocking. And so I did a Google search on light body, and what came up was the first website that I looked at talked about star seeds coming from different star systems and galaxies and stuff. And in that moment, it was like what is happening? You know, I was so freaked out. And so, like, you know, in the movie, what's it called? The Never Ending Story, when like the kid is reading the book in that moment when he realized that he's actually interacting with the book and he freaks out and slams the book shut. That was kind of like me in that moment, slamming my laptop shut, like, no, 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 I'm not going down this path. Star seeds are like, you know, something on the Sci-Fi Channel. This isn't real. Like, I'm freaking out. And so, like I said, I didn't really have very many people to turn to. And my husband's aunt that had given me that book, The Seed of the Soul, thank God, like, I reached out to her and I was just like, so Auntie Leonie, if you're watching this, thank you. I was just like, I'm freaked out right now. Something happened and I don't understand it. And she was super, super helpful and supportive and loving and you know, just kind of like she does astrology, and so she did a reading and was just like, oh, whoa, okay, you're going to be going through a huge transition these next few years. And so from that point forward, you know, it took me like 2 weeks. It took me like 2 weeks before I felt somewhat normal, and I was still trying to find what it was that happened to me, and the only thing that I can like correlate it to was my after symptoms, kind of correlated to the after symptoms of Kundalini awakenings, and so I thought, okay, well maybe that's what it was, but it didn't really, like how people describe a Kundalini awakening, it didn't really happen to me in that normal sense where they feel like that energy kind of rising and stuff. For me, it was just like there was just so much going on that I don't even know if that energy was swirling around like that, like a Kundalini, like a Shakti rising or whatever. And so, and I was really scared. I was really scared because I knew that I could not go back to the older version of myself. Like, this was just too big and too much. And I was seeing things from a completely different perspective. And I was worried that I would be abandoned. I was worried that my kids weren't going to understand me. I was worried that my husband wasn't going to understand me, and that my friends would reject me. And, it was really, really interesting trying to navigate through life after that. And so Auntie Leonie had given me this work. It was kind of like a PDF about the spiritual path. And it was a total foreign language for me. Like, I couldn't even understand what it was talking about, but I saw a list of things, and I knew that when I had that experience, that my heart just burst open. And I looked on the list and I saw heart opening, and then I was like, okay, what's next? And I went beneath it and it was like, find your tribe. And I was like, okay. And then from that point forward, it was literally just like, put one foot in front of the next, one foot in front of the next, one foot in front of the next. And just keep trying to, you know, I was very much in the journey of the seeker, where I was trying to find answers, and I was reading a lot and trying to find people, you know, with similar situations that I can speak to and kind of like, you know, converse with. And so from that point forward, it's like everything slowly kind of fell into place. And it took time. Like, that experience was 2.5 years ago. And I'm just now in a place where I feel comfortable to talk about it and share it. And I know that everything's going to be okay. And, you know, like, my husband's been so amazing and supportive. And my dad's cancer is gone. So that's incredible. And yeah, everything is just kind of like, I've reached a very, very peaceful place in my life, and it hasn't always, over the last few years, it has definitely not been an easy journey. There's been a lot of discomfort, but at the same time, there's been a lot of exploration and so much beauty, and it's been kind of like a treasure hunt. That's how I think of life now, after going through that experience, is that life is a treasure hunt. And if we take time to just really sit in our hearts and just really be who we are and follow what lights us up, then we just get led to treasure after treasure after treasure after treasure. And yeah, so I'm in a place right now where I'm really happy. I found the healing modality that I resonate the most with, and I'm just having the most amazing time serving clients and holding space for them, and I feel like in such awe of how everything has unfolded. And so I'm sharing this because I know that there are a lot of people that are probably on this journey, and maybe they don't have people to turn to or people to talk to. Maybe they don't have the same support system that I had. It really does come with a whole lot of changes. And so it's scary navigating through those changes. And so, my wish for everybody is that if you're going through this path, just know that you're held and know that you're supported and that you're loved in every single moment. And that really all that we have to do here is just to be ourselves. My definition of spirituality is to be your authentic self. And it's that simple. And we're all beautiful and we're all unique. And to just be able to really tap into that and be that and allow life to unfold from a heart-centered space. It's just really, really beautiful. And so, I just wanted to offer, if any of you have experiences that you've been through and you need somebody to speak to about it, please feel free to reach out to me. I would be more than happy to, just be there to listen. And, if you want any guidance, to be there to guide you. I know that part of my journey was very much of figuring this out mostly on my own. There were a few groups that I was involved in that served as a really great support. But in terms of like the whole learning process, I really had to spend time on my own and research and kind of figure out what feels good to me. And if I can offer any of that wisdom to any of you, I would be really delighted to do so. So I'm going to end this conversation there. It's been kind of long. This one last thing that I want to say is that I'm going to be sharing more about my journey. But through this process, I've really had to connect with so many different aspects of myself. So my inner child, my adolescent self, my young adult self, my future self. And in the process of connecting to all these versions of myself, I realized that there was one key component that has been such an important element in my life in many different stages that I don't have in my life right now. And that is really expressing myself through artwork. And so while I will probably write a little bit here and there and do a few videos here and there, I'm really going to be sharing my journey mostly through my artwork. And I'm very, very excited to be able to go on that journey because again, I just feel like there's more treasures that are going to be found as I connect into my more creative self. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing more that way. And I kind of feel I'm at this point right now in my life where I feel like we're so bombarded by information all the time, with the news and, you know, just with social media, with everything. It's like constant information, information, information. And it doesn't really allow us to really look within. And so when I was getting trying to get the vision of where I'm the space that I'm moving into, I was really shown as a kid how much I loved abstract art. And even as like a little one, I love the fact that we can have like 10 people can look at a painting and all get different things out of it. And everybody's just kind of getting what they need out of it because they're tuning into their own hearts and resonating with it in their own way. And so I really feel that as I move forward in sharing, it's, you know, part of it, there's something really beautiful about sharing our experience, but there's also something really beautiful about giving the opportunity to for other people to look into their own hearts and finding their own experience and their own resonance with it, rather than just kind of like, you know, giving out a lot of information. So yeah, I just, if you guys just, if you follow my pages or whatever, and you're able to see my art, I really love to hear any feedback that you have and anything that you resonate with, or even if you don't resonate with, that's okay. You know, everything that we feel is it's all purposeful, and there's nothing wrong with it. So so yeah, I'm really excited to be in that space where I'm ready to kind of change things up a little bit and be more of my true self. So it's really exciting. Okay, so that was like, that was really huge. So if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and for all of you that have been there during my journey supporting me. Thank you. And I love you.